Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Friday, February 7th. We're going to take a look at CleanSpark today. So it's been a long time since we checked in on CleanSpark, but it caught my eye today. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we have this green level here at 896, just below that psychological $9 level. That's green because it's considered like a strong buy zone. You see previously back here, that's where it fell through, and that's where it regained, and then it had a big gap up. Ultimately, ended up coming down and filling that gap, but that's right around the range where it got bought up. Now, sure, it dipped down closer to 8 for sure, but it did ultimately get bought up, pushed all the way to like almost 18, and then pulled back down to this range again. So it's almost one of those what I used to call magnetic zones, where it sort of has a hard time not just continuously returning to it. Now, of course, the hope is that eventually it gets sort of enough distance from that level that it leaves it behind. It gets into a different stratosphere, if you will, and can move on. But for now, that seems to be the case because it's quite far away, right? To then sort of come down and lose 2/3 of its value and come back down to that range and then lose over half of its value and do that same thing again, or it was about half of its value. But most recently, that is right where it got bought up. And for now, that 1229 is the sort of primary level. I would say, I can put another one in here at the moment. There looks to be a mid-range level developing here around 1069. So we zoom in, this will make more sense because you won't see all of those levels. You see all of the wrestling here, right, with this 1096. That's the one that I just put on. So tons of motion above, below, kind of continuously returning to that day after day after day. And then today makes a run at that 1229 level, was able to stretch 18 cents above it, but ultimately got pushed right off of it, right? So that level acting just as we would expect it to, where there's a strong reaction there, right? And of course, if it's approaching it from below, strong resistive action means strong selling pressure coming in as it tries to work through that range. So even on a day where it's up over 9%, still respecting that level pretty strongly, and it'll be interesting to see if it can leave this 1069, and of course that was at 896 level behind, and just start grappling with this 1229. That might be a really good sign for the potential to be able to at least start engaging with 1229 as opposed to 1069 and 896. Again, working into a different range that would be sort of conducive to bullish momentum. Now, if it can get through there, 1397, 1489, 1619 all look like good potential resistance levels to me, but good resistance turns to good support, so don't let that sort of scare you off. It's always a question of what does it do when it gets to that range, how does it react, and how does it try to overcome it, or how strong is the selling pressure, and does that have lasting impact and lasting effect that impacts the overall momentum and motion of the stock. If it does get, a little drippy, 1069, 896 are there, of course, and then down here an approach to 8. There's probably a level here just below the mid, like 842. Looks like a nice secondary level to me below 896 if it does get, like I said, additionally dippy beyond there. EMAs wise, it's right where you want it to be. It's struggling with the 183 EMA, and what I mean by that is if it can gain support over here, start throwing bullish crossovers, right? That's where you see a nice strong motion. Now, the challenge here was you saw it was wrestling with it for a few candles and then got pushed off, and then it had these huge gaps up, right? This day it jumped almost 30%. Obviously, in stocks like this, we've seen it all the time. I can't remember what we were looking at yesterday. I think BBAI, and we noticed the same pattern there, right? When it gets really jumpy through critical levels like this, it's just all too common for it to quickly lose all of those gains and then put in a lower low below where it had been prior to the push, right? So this push initiated off of a 970 candle low, and then it comes down here and puts in a low of 902 after it had that big run up. So if this can continue the motion that's putting in right now and it doesn't get super jumpy, I understand that if you're already in it, you may want to see that jump and be able to lock in profit, but that's how this happens, right? You have this huge gain, and folks are like, I'm going to take that profit. And then there's all the selling pressure, and it bleeds it dry and more. But if this can have a less jumpy motion and start to drag these short-term EMAs into bullish crossover after bullish crossover after bullish crossover, that might give it sort of the capability to have a more sustained run. Now, I don't know that it'll last forever. I don't know that it'll happen at all, but it at least gives it an opportunity, right? Like this was a much smoother motion, right? You didn't have a plus 30% day that got you there. Now, granted, you had some big days, right? Plus 16%, plus 7%, plus 14. So you did have some big days. But ultimately, that motion through the 183 was more smooth than this guy. So, and that's sort of like where we are today. Now, that could change any day if it does get a big gap up candle, but it's looking to me like there's the potential for that smoother motion. At least we'll see how that kind of plays out. Now, volume wise, not a ton of walls above here. I'm not saying that these are nothing, but the shelving below, at or below where the price is at the moment, it outpaces the ceiling, if you will, that sit above it. So could it have sort of some smooth sailing? I'm reluctant to say that, as it makes it sound like it's going to be like a whiz. But it could certainly bolster buying pressure down here and smoothen out any significant selling pressure that would thwart a move up here. We'll see how that continues to play out, but that's kind of what it looks like to me at the moment. Pulling in here some order flow stuff. Okay, a little less than half of the shares profited as of close today. So definitely nothing that might prevent people that are mildly underwater from starting to feel like the motion makes sense, and it at least gives them an opportunity to dollar cost average down. Maybe we'll see that. I don't know. Large scale orders coming in quite strong, right? So there were some large scale that outpaced, but they are single digit. The large scale coming in, high in the not high in the double digits like it's 99, but high in the teens, let's say that, into the teens here, and then, nearly pressing toward 20 there. So strong motion overall. So yeah, to me, it looks like it has some possibility. Now, here's how it even got on my radar. CLSK came up on my scan, my TTM squeeze indicator scan, and this is why. Currently triggering as it's sitting like mid-range of the channel, trying to get some motion, but having a hard time at that call trigger. So the call trigger for February is situated at 1173. If it can get over that and it can stretch toward or to the +1 ATR, that puts the price up at 1592. So if it can make it, we'll see. It had a trigger and fire back here, and it was like triggering as it was falling, which is kind of interesting. And then when it fired, it continued to fall, and then it sort of recovered a little bit. This trigger and fire, a little bit more clean, triggering when it's mid-range, and then the fire really set off the motion. That looks to be more like the setup at the moment, at least, where it's triggering as it's sitting mid-range. And so we might get something amounting to like a re-trigger and a refire here. Not like typically how it would look, but it may sort of net out to be the same as we look back on it in the future, but that's for the future to tell us, I guess. But also, a nice big bump in volume today coming in. So we'll see if that can sustain, but there was some selling pressure that came in here at that 183, like we spoke about. So definitely folks looking to lock in, their portion of that 10-ish or so % gain. Certainly if they sold up here, they would have had a bit more than that. But 1229 or the 183 EMA, playing the dominant role at the moment. So that to me is the critical piece of the puzzle. How does that interact with the 183 EMA or the 1229 level? Can it flip it, right? That unlocks a lot of potential, not only volume positioning wise, but some pretty decent, sizable percentage gains. Good Lord, can you tell it's Friday? That are made possible if we can get motion over that 1229. Okay, this clearly has to be done. I hope that you had a good trading week and that you enjoy your weekend. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.